Have you ever thought about who the most powerful dark wizard in the Harry Potter universe really is? What if Voldemort isn't the ultimate villain we've all believed him to be? In today's video, you'll find out why Gellert Grindelwald might actually be the greatest dark wizard of all time, and why Voldemort pales in comparison. For years, I was convinced that Voldemort was the most terrifying, unstoppable, and dangerous wizard in the wizarding world. He seemed invincible, striking fear into the hearts of everyone. His presence alone sent shivers down spines. I even declared him the greatest dark wizard in one of my previous articles. But then, something changed. A comment made me question everything. Someone suggested that Grindelwald, not Voldemort, deserved that title. At first, I dismissed it. But the more I read about Grindelwald, the more I compared his history to Voldemort's, the more I began to doubt my original stance. And now I've come to a shocking realization. Grindelwald wasn't just as powerful as Voldemort. He was stronger, smarter, far more dangerous, and I'm about to prove it. Before we dive in, just a quick disclaimer. This is my personal opinion. If you disagree, feel free to debate in the comments. Now let's get started. Voldemort was fueled by hatred toward his father, his mother, his teachers, muggles, muggleborns, and basically anyone who wasn't bowing to him. His fear of death defined his entire existence. That fear led him to create Horcruxes, desperately trying to cheat fate. His followers weren't loyal out of admiration, they served him out of terror. Even his closest allies, like the Malfoys and Peter Pettigrew, feared him more than they respected him. At his core, Voldemort was a frightened, bitter child lashing out at the world. Grindelwald, he was different. He had vision. He wasn't just seeking power. He wanted to reshape the world. He believed in his own superiority and sought the Deathly Hallows to cement his dominance. Unlike Voldemort, he didn't force followers into submission. People followed him because they were captivated by his charisma, his ideals. He even managed to sway young Dumbledore, something Voldemort could never dream of. And unlike Voldemort, Grindelwald had regrets. In the end, he faced his own failures, acknowledged his crimes. That alone makes him a far more complex and compelling figure. Now let's talk about their impact. Voldemort started 2 wars. His reign of terror was brutal, but it was limited. He never dared to expand beyond Britain. Despite all his power, he remained a local villain. Grindelwald? He ignited a war that spread across Europe and even reached America. He wasn't just a threat to the UK, he was a global nightmare. His followers weren't just terrorizing wizards in one country, they were shaking the foundations of the entire wizarding world. His goal? The creation of a magical empire, a vision far grander than Voldemort's personal vendettas. He even built his own prison, Nurmengard, a fortress meant to hold his enemies. Ironic, considering it became his own final resting place. Now let's compare their magical abilities. Voldemort was undeniably skilled. He excelled in the dark arts from a young age, mastered Horcruxes, and even learned to fly without a broom. He was a formidable duelist, taking on some of the best wizards of his time. His battle with Dumbledore at the Ministry was intense, though it's worth noting that Dumbledore was already weakened at that point. Grindelwald, however, was a true prodigy. From his youth, he displayed extraordinary magical talent, quickly becoming one of Durmstrang's top students. His combat skills were unmatched. He defeated Aberforth Dumbledore, overpowered American auras, and mastered wandless magic. He fought entire squads of wizards and won. And let's not forget his duel with Dumbledore. Many call it the greatest wizarding battle in history. Unlike Voldemort's fight with a weakened Dumbledore, Grindelwald faced Albus at his peak, and he nearly won. That alone speaks volumes. So who truly stands above? Voldemort was feared. Grindelwald was revered. Voldemort ruled through fear. Grindelwald ruled through ideology. Voldemort's ambitions were personal. Grindelwald sought to change the world. In the end, there's no contest. Grindelwald wasn't just a dark wizard, he was a force of nature, a villain whose shadow loomed far beyond Voldemort's reach. But there's something else that sets them apart: strategy. Voldemort was ruthless but impulsive. He relied on brute force and intimidation. His plans, while effective, often crumbled due to his own arrogance. He underestimated love, friendship, and the resilience of those who opposed him. He dismissed emotions as weaknesses, but that blindness became his downfall. He never imagined that Snape could betray him. He never believed Harry could survive. He never considered that his own Horcruxes might be his undoing. In the end, Voldemort was defeated not just by magic, but by his inability to understand the human heart. Grindelwald, on the other hand, played the long game. He wasn't just a warrior, he was a tactician. He didn't need to force people to follow him. They did so willingly. He planted ideas, built an ideology, created a movement. His words had power. He understood that controlling minds was more effective than controlling bodies. He built alliances, infiltrated governments, positioned himself as a leader rather than a tyrant. Even when he was finally defeated, he never truly lost. His influence lingered, his ideas survived. Another key difference lies in their choices under pressure. Voldemort, when faced with resistance, responded with violence. He destroyed, murdered, eliminated anything that stood in his way. But Grindelwald, he adapted, he manipulated, he knew when to fight and when to retreat. He understood people's desires and fears. He knew how to twist the truth, how to turn enemies into allies. Even when imprisoned, he remained composed. When Voldemort confronted him in Nurmengard, demanding the location of the Elder Wand, Grindelwald didn't cower. He didn't beg. He laughed. He mocked the Dark Lord, calling him unworthy. He faced death with dignity, something Voldemort never could. Their views on power also differed drastically. Voldemort saw power as domination. He wanted to rule, but only for his own sake. He saw others as pawns, tools to be discarded when no longer useful. He had no real vision beyond his own supremacy. His legacy was built on fear, and fear is fragile. The moment he fell, his empire crumbled. Grindelwald, however, saw power as a means to an end. He believed in a cause greater than himself. Even if his vision was twisted, it was still a vision. He didn't just seek control, he sought transformation. He wanted to reshape the wizarding world, to establish a new order where wizards ruled openly over muggles. His ideas were dangerous not because they were violent, but because they were persuasive. Even decades later, his ideology had echoes. Even after his defeat, his legacy remained. That's why he was feared long after his reign ended. And then there's their use of magic. Voldemort was undeniably skilled, but he relied heavily on brute strength. He favored powerful destructive spells. He killed instantly, striking without hesitation. But he lacked finesse. He relied on his wand, on his Horcruxes, on external tools to sustain his power. He was exceptional, but not invincible. Grindelwald, however, was something else entirely. He wasn't just powerful, he was innovative. He pioneered new spells, new methods, new ways to wield magic. He fought without a wand, conjured defenses beyond anything seen before, dueled with an elegance that made even Dumbledore wary. He didn't just overpower opponents, he outmaneuvered them. He anticipated moves before they happened. He saw the battlefield like a chessboard, not just a fight. And then there's the ultimate difference, how they met their end. Voldemort died as he lived, alone. He was abandoned in his final moments. His Horcruxes gone, his followers scattered, his power broken. He faced death with terror, unable to comprehend his own mortality. He fell not as a god, but as a man stripped of everything that made him dangerous. Grindelwald, on the other hand, died with defiance. He faced Voldemort without fear. He had no Horcruxes, no army, no allies left, but he still had his pride. He laughed in Voldemort's face, refusing to give him the satisfaction of groveling. In that moment he won a final victory. Even in death he denied Voldemort what he sought. He played the game until the very end. So who was truly the greatest dark wizard? Voldemort may have been feared, but Grindelwald was respected. Voldemort built a reign of terror, but Grindelwald built a movement. Voldemort fought for himself, but Grindelwald fought for an idea. And in the end, ideas are far harder to destroy than any Dark Lord.